Hughes Sports Podcast. We're taking the lead, analyzing the game from the rink to the field. From the ice to the turf, we'll break it down. Discussing every win and every loss in town. We'll talk about the Canucks and the Lions. We are your irrational fans. We are your irrational fans.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 104. The episode that I think we should be celebrating more than the episode 100. 2 full years of you guys listening to us yammer on about random things, including the Canucks BC Lions. I am your host, of course, Jake Hughes, alongside the old man. Old man, how the hell are you doing today?
Well, I was doing awesome until you told me this was episode 104, but on the old Twitter machine or X machine, you got 103.
It should be 104.
You've got 103.
I've got
Folks,
104 everywhere else.
This is why I drink.
I've got 104 everywhere else. I blame X and Twitter, whatever it is.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, blame somebody else.
I can't blame myself. I have to blame you or the internet.
What a show we got tonight, eh?
Big show, lots of news happening.
Whew.
Right before the show, an hour before the show happened, and we have a guest on to talk about it. It just worked out perfectly that we scheduled him a few weeks ago, and then the JT Miller trade happened. We're like, perfect, we can talk about that. And then moments ago, it was announced that Marcus Pettersson, or MP3 as I'm calling him, signed a brand new extension. But let's bring in our guest. You'll know him from the Sekeres Price show, friend of our show here at Hughes Sports Podcast, Matt Sekeres. Matt, how are you doing?
Fellas, nice to join again. Congratulations on 104 episodes, or is it 103? Jake, you have failed your old man. Stats, they are detailed, and you have confused him. He may be getting to the age where confusion sets in more readily.
It doesn't take much.
Anyways, glad to be back, fellas. And yeah, how about all this news that has happened in the intervening week?
Holy.
This appearance.
You know, we knew something was going to happen. I mean, it was inevitable with all the... and Jake and I have kind of had it with the drama that was happening behind the scenes with Pettersson and Miller. So we knew something was going to happen, but boy, did it happen quick and way bigger than we thought.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I think everybody was sick of the drama, including Jim Rutherford in the Vancouver Canucks. It was a week ago yesterday, I guess, or a week ago today. Yeah, a week ago yesterday that we were discussing that explosive article in the Globe and Mail where he basically not only laid out that this was an irreparable problem between Miller and Pettersson, but also how they were going to go about trying to fix it. And you have to think he knew they were closing in on the Filipino at least side of this deal, if not the Marcus Pettersson side as well. I mean, he references not being able to get a top 2 center back for JT Miller. He references talking about maybe changing the balance of the team with, which I think they've also done here. So yeah, I mean, just a stunning week for the Vancouver Canucks. Friday was the single biggest one-day makeover of the team since Pat Quinn back in 1991. I suppose you can go back to Mike Keenan and his era in 97, 98 in terms of this number of roster players that have turned over in season. So a transformative week for the Vancouver Canucks, and it continued tonight with the Pettersson extension. Sorry, the Marcus Pettersson extension. We do really need to be specific in myriad ways now, guys, with 3 of them on the team.
Can you imagine trying to be the play-by-play, especially Shorthouse? Pettersson to Pettersson to Pettersson.
Your worst nightmare. I mean, and to think like Elias and Elias Pettersson, this is the first time this has happened in the NHL since Greg Adams and Greg Adams with the Vancouver Canucks. So we have a history of this in the market, and here it's reared its I would say ugly, but maybe just ugly on the one side of Elias Pettersson. So, I mean, the kids looked really good. Elias might be the third best Pettersson on the team.
You know what? Yeah, I would. I mean, that slap shot of his, holy.
It's gone. It's gone.
Mhm.
It's wandering in the Canadian wilderness somewhere. It's like a Yeti or a Sasquatch. If anybody sees Elias Pettersson's slap shot, please do report it to Rogers Arena.
That's hilarious. I like that. We're gonna clip that one.
The big difference I think for me with having DPD, because I'm never going to get their names right, which pronunciation it is, DPD in the lineup, is he brings that grittiness that we really haven't had from a defensive side defenseman in quite a while. But then also standing up for his teammates yesterday. Garland takes that, what I thought was a slew foot, and then a kind of a high hit, which Garland takes quite often just because of his size. And PD was like, no, we're not doing this, and came in just a solid cross-check, and then shows the matureness of a much older veteran of not dropping the gloves and getting suckered into taking another penalty.
Yeah, I mean, in some regards, he's replaced some of that physicality and intimidation factor that Nikita Zadorov brought last year.
Yes.
You know, I also noted last night, we talked about it on the show today, pinching down off the wall and hitting wingers like the Nicholas Kronwall move from Detroit all those years ago. So you can tell Tocchet loves him. I mean, he's a wrecking ball. He's very, very quick to play the body. They've had big defensemen for some time now. We know that Tocchet and Adam Foote, the defensive coach, love the big redwood defenseman. But I'm not sure they've had one who has behaved in this manner. And when you put him in conjunction with Kiefer Sherwood and what he's doing, setting records with hits up off the wing, this is suddenly a Vancouver Canucks team that has a pretty significant physical element to it on both ends of the rink. Sherwood on the forecheck and Elias Pettersson just about everywhere else, pinching down off the blue line and in his own zone as well. So, yeah, you know, as good as, you know, I'm sure, look, we can pick apart these trades, and I think we might just on this episode. But I think if you're Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin, and Rick Tocchet, as much as you've liked that you've added a top four defenseman in Marcus Pettersson, I think you also love the fact that the last week has seen the emergence of a guy that you feel really good on that third pair on the left side in young Elias Pettersson. So, yeah, again, a transformative week for the Vancouver Canucks. It would have been anyways. And then this kid came and added his name to the story.
Yeah, it's super fun to see and watch as a fan. Finally, some exciting hockey happening at home, not just on the road.
Yeah.
Because what are we now? The last 6 were 4-1-1. Is that correct?
4-1-1 in the last 6.
Yeah, and also finally starting to show some better efforts on home ice at Rogers Arena as well. I mean, you know, just think of it. If the Vancouver Canucks were even a reasonable home team, we'd be talking about a team that's pretty comfortable on a playoff spot. But you know, they're sub 500 there still, and you know, that's one of several areas that you can identify and say the points have been lost there, and that's why you're in this dogfight for the final spot in the West.
Totally agree. What do you think Miller's legacy in Vancouver is going to be?
Wow. Star-crossed for sure, Kev. I mean, we're not too far removed from people chanting his name at Rogers Arena alongside Al Murdoch every time he's announced on the score as part of a goal. He was a beloved figure at Rogers Arena until Grey Cup Sunday and that game against Nashville, where he gets benched and then suddenly is on a 10-game leave of absence. And that changed everything here. So, look, one of 2 Vancouver Canucks all time to be a point per game player as a Canuck alongside Pavel Bure, and that is extraordinary company
Extraordinary.
Extraordinary company to keep. 11th all time in Vancouver Canucks scoring, and a guy who when he was on his game was a complete centerman and the type of guy that fans love to latch onto with his personality, with the emotion that he showed on and off the ice. Alas, it ends pretty sadly here for JT Miller. It ends with a trade that the organization felt they had to make in a addition by subtraction vein. So, very difficult, complicated legacy for JT Miller here in Vancouver. A little bit of Ryan Kessler in there, a little bit of Pavel Bure in there. But all in all, a guy I think that the Vancouver Canucks can feel, look, I thought it was a terrible trade when they moved that first round pick at the draft to get him. He was coming off 13 goals as the third line forward in Tampa. He had well-documented attitude and work ethic issues. He was a one-time first-round pick with a ton of physical tools, but, given where the Canucks were at in their cycle then, given that Tampa was in a cap crunch, and given the type of season Miller was coming off, I thought it was a terrible trade, and it turned out to be a heck of one. It turned out to be one of the better trades in Canucks history.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up like Kessler, or even going way back before Jake's time, Pavel Bure. Everybody had that sour.
Do you know who Pavel Bure is? Like, has he been on YouTube? Has he seen the clips?
I have the old skate jersey with Pavel Bure on the back.
Okay, good to know.
Funny story, when the day Jake was being born, his mom's were in the hospital, and it's taking a long time. And there's a Canuck game on, and there's a dad room. Back then, there was a dad's room you could go down to.
I
was running back and forth
and paced nervously. That was, yeah.
And his mom said, "If you're not here when this baby's born, we're going to name him Pavel."
You were this close, Jake. This
so
close,
buddy.
Pavel Hughes has a nice ring to it.
It's an interesting ring, that's for sure.
Yeah, in sort of a transatlantic kind of way.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But when Pavel left, when Kessler left, I remember having that bad taste in our mouth, the way it all came about and the way it happened. Right. I don't have that same with Miller.
Yeah. Well, and I think that in that sense, like, that the turn happened here for JT shortly after that game against Nashville in November.
Yes.
And I think the turn happened because people looked at it and went, how is it that two guys can't just settle their problems like adults and like professionals and be the best coworkers and collaborators that they can be? And, when you fall short on that metric, number one, you leave your employers no choice, right? Like, they have to identify, okay, who's the problem in the room, and how quickly can we get off of it, and what can we get for it? So I think it was quite relatable to Canucks fans that, look, I love JT. I love JT's game. But if he's a problem for Elias Pettersson, and he's a problem for other guys in the room, and he is sitting there with his own emotional needs, being someone who holds the Canucks back or adversely affects their chemistry, I think that message got across. And frankly, I think the Vancouver Canucks messaging on this matter, being as honest as they were, because let's face it, that was extraordinary as well. I mean, how often do you hear a club president, a club GM, a head coach, a captain all speak on an internal matter like that? So yeah. I think that led a lot of the market to the conclusion that JT had to go, and I think that's what its intention was. I think it was calculated.
Do you think there was any time PD was going?
Yeah, I do. I think a couple of weekends ago when Carolina made that Rantanen trade, I think Vancouver was right there. Wow. I think it was a similar package to what Colorado eventually gave up to get what Colorado eventually got in the Rantanen deal. And look, I'm not necessarily sure that Elias Pettersson is going to be a Vancouver Canuck long term. I mean, that's a whole other silo of issues, guys. Like, we just finished on Miller, but we could spend equally as much time on Elias Pettersson. And look, while I'd be surprised if he's moved at the trade deadline, we're just outside of a month away. I would not be the least bit surprised if he's traded by July 1st, before his no movement clause kicks in.
Insane to me that we would trade the two top players on our team in the same year. It baffles my brain.
It's mind-boggling, Kevin, but let's remember this is an organization that traded Corey Schneider, then Roberto Luongo.
That's exactly
in relatively short order, right? Like, you're sitting there with the top 5 goaltender in the world, and his backup was so good and such a good prospect that he was at one point stealing starts away from Roberto Luongo. I mean, you were set in goal either way you went for several years there, and that situation wound up combusting as well. So, yeah, I mean, I don't typically believe in curses and jinxes and things of that nature, but I understand from the shoes of a Canucks fan how you look at this and just go, what's going on? Like, how is my franchise routinely doing things that you just don't see other franchises doing? But we're not there yet, right? Like, the other side of this is that Elias flourishes, or they just give him more time, and somehow he's a Vancouver Canuck next year, and somehow the JT Miller thing becomes a footnote as opposed to the reason, as opposed to the opening shot in what becomes a total team makeover around Quinn Hughes.
That would be huge. I'm speechless. I'm not speechless very often, but the thought of that just makes my head explode. It's like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
But you had...
And yet, Kevin, the thought of him being a 50-point player over the last calendar year makes my head explode too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you were tracking another 100-point season. Everything was going swimmingly well. I don't dispute that he had a knee ailment, tendonitis. I don't dispute that cost him some effectiveness in the second half of last year. But you have guys who undergo ACL reconstruction and come back in this amount of time. And still it hasn't improved. So, I think the relationship between Elias Pettersson and the Vancouver Canucks also bears watching. Probably still needs mending, right? And I'm not utterly convinced that Jim Rutherford and Rick Tocchet believe that Elias Pettersson can be a centerpiece player on a championship club.
Wow.
And I think that's fair questions. Like, we've seen him, again, thrive in certain aspects, but then, again, over the last, what is it, 70 games, he's been on a 50-point pace.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind-boggling that a player can have that much skill, and you can see it in spurts, for it to just crash out the way it has.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, we've been accustomed to late bloomers here in Vancouver. Henrik and Daniel were not exactly shot out of a cannon in their NHL career to the top of the Art Ross race.
True.
One of the great Canucks of all time, Marcus Naslund, took quite a bit of time to find his game, despite having a ton of pedigree. Elias was on a faster track, and then Elias breaking out for 102 points in his fifth season, but really his fourth full season, because they had that the COVID shortened season, right? If you remember. I think a lot of people expected onwards and upwards, and if not onwards and upwards, then at least a guy who was going to be a point per game player, or pretty close from that point forward. And so to see the backward step sort of that late after the bloom is concerning. That's not a career arc that you see a whole lot. From 102 points to whatever he would track this year, whatever the prorated amount would be this year, 50 some. that's it's a damn near 50% drop in production. And
Can we cut his wage by 50%? That's
well, what we should say though is yes, it was a poor playoffs last year, and you can also say the bubble playoffs did not replicate the Stanley Cup playoffs as we know them, and I think that's fair as well.
yes.
But he was 18 points in 17 games during that bubble playoff run. So the career totals in the playoffs don't look so bad. And while I think there's a whole lot of reason for skepticism now that any kind of lessons have been learned from last year's Stanley Cup playoffs, at least he has gone through them and had a struggle. And perhaps that in conjunction with JT Miller no longer being in there and being able to feel more comfortable, play more free, not worry about somebody barking at you in the dressing room. There's still a pathway here for Elias Pettersson to get his season back on track and make the Vancouver Canucks and their fans feel a whole lot better about this contract and about this player.
Yeah, I mean, if we're sounding like 3 years ago with the Canucks out of a playoff spot and doom and gloom, but in all reality, I mean, they're only 1 point out of third. Right? They
all is not lost here, Kevin. Like there is still tons to play for this season, and there is still a happy. There is still some happiness or at least progress available to them this year. I mean, I don't necessarily think they're going to lift the Stanley Cup this year. I would be surprised even if they loaded up at the trade deadline if that's the outcome. But I also wouldn't be surprised if this, new Canucks with all these different players in the mix, and particularly if they add to it by the trade deadline, have some success in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Yes. They have the potential for two goaltenders who can steal games or series.
Yes.
They have the best defenseman in the world. And if they play that Tocchet structure and that Tocchet system and keep the shots low and keep the chances low. I mean, we saw it last year in the second round against Edmonton. Like that was a really good defensive series, especially at even strength for the Canucks against the most potent team in the NHL. So, yeah, I mean, there's still a glass half full view on this season. And frankly, I think watching the last two games, I think people are starting to see that. And I think people are starting to feel that. And when I say feel that, I don't just mean the fans. I think the room might be feeling that as well.
You saw a different pep in their step last night.
For sure.
When I was watching, I'm like, wow, this team seems energized. And a lot of times after a trade, you are energized somewhat. So hopefully that continues. But we have kept you way longer than we intended. Yeah. We probably won't talk to you before the playoffs because I was like, playoffs a long way away, but we only got 30 games left.
Yeah.
What is success now?
Well, I'll go by the Patrick Allvin gauntlet that he threw down last year at the end of the second round that, we have achieved nothing here. In fact, not even halfway to our goal. And look, that was, I think, a battle cry, sort of a speech you pull out at the end of a season like that when you had 109 points, improved so much. That was as much a message to his dressing room, I think, as it was to Canucks fans, saying the more difficult part is yet to come. They've used that phrase a whole lot since. But when you go back to September, October, fellas, I think everybody was looking at the team and going, okay, it's incomplete. Okay, we anticipate they're going to improve it. But, a conference finals appearance would be a step further than what they got last year and probably be received in quite similar a manner to what last year's season was. You remember they got standing ovation after they lost Game 7 at home to the Oilers. So,
I remember it.
Yeah. Like I didn't necessarily feel that the standard amongst fans this year was championship or bust. So I think if you can get to the conference final, that would be a heck of a step forward, especially from where you've come this year. And I think that would leave a lot of fans feeling hopeful and with a good taste in their mouth going forward.
Awesome. Any final words, Jake?
No, just appreciate the time for you jumping on and chatting with us. Again, way longer than I feel like we say that at the end
You
of
say
every
that all
we
the
chat.
time, though. You know, you get guests. I do it myself. You get guests on, the next thing you know, you get and plus.
And Matt, I keep looking at my mailbox. Every day I go to my mailbox, I open it up, and it doesn't have my hat.
Oh, really? Well, we must. I mean, someone in shipping is getting fired. Then must be the case. I'll inquire for you, and if we get you on, old man, I hope and trust you'll wear it.
If I get an S&P hat, I would wear it every show.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll get you on after we're done reorganizing the shipping department and hiring.
Someone
new
must be
personnel.
fired.
We'll get you one out there, and then I want you to give it its own Instagram account. Okay, you take it around the city, take photos with it all
I
around
like
town.
it.
We could use the promotion.
We will do that. We'll grow your show in Calgary because they love the Canucks here.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Hand in glove.
Matt, thank you. Thanks, so
fellas.
much.
Great to catch up again. Thanks,
Tell
Jake.
people where they can reach out to you.
Well, Sekeres Price, wherever you get your podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And sekeresprice.com. So there's the spelling of the last name. No, you guys have it handled. I don't need to go through all that. Appreciate it, guys.
Have a
Thanks,
Matt.
You all tonight.
Matt Sekeres from the Sekeres and Price Show.
Yes, always a blast to have him on talking about things. And I know we always talk and we're like, we're gonna go down this pathway, and then we start talking and it's like, you know, we're just gonna go with it.
Question we were supposed to.
That's fine, because that just means we can jump into things that we weren't able to discuss. And it's funny because I've mentioned before, I've watched and or listened to Matt Sekeres for many, many years.
Yeah.
Anytime I spell his name, I hear it in my head how he says it. It's Mattsekeres, and it's just the exact cadence he's always used. It's burnt into my brain, and it'll never leave.
That's awesome.
But things we didn't get to talk about,
yes,
and dig into, was that Marcus Pettersson indeed did sign a new deal, 5.5 per year for 6 years. Of course, Marcus Pettersson came to the Canucks in last Friday's big, as Matt said, one of the biggest changes in organizational history.
Yes.
And has looked solid, has gotten all the praise from Jim Rutherford, Rick Tocchet about his leadership in the room. What do you think of the deal?
When I first looked at it, I was like, why is everybody making such a big deal about this? As you know, I've only got so much bandwidth.
Yep.
And I follow the Canucks. I don't pay attention to any other team. I will pay attention to what Calgary's doing just because we live here.
Yep.
But I don't follow their team. I'll follow wins and losses. So when I heard this Marcus Pettersson, I was like, what are they doing? Just grabbing Petterssons for the fucking sake of grabbing Petterssons? It's like, who is this guy? When I saw him really play last night
yeah,
I was like, wow. So 5.5, 6 year. I think it's a steal. Time is going to tell, right? We thought we were all excited when EP40 signed 11 million.
Yeah.
That's kind of been a sore point, obviously.
Well, and the big thing with this is, like, if you look at 5.5 over 6 years signed right now, going into next year, the upper cap is going up 7.5 million next year.
Yeah.
It's expected to go up 8.5 million the year after that, and 9.5 million the year after that.
Exactly.
So by the third year you hit that deal, your upper limit is going to be 113.5 million.
Yeah.
Which is going to be under 5% of your cap. Which, for a solid second pair, and at that point, if he starts to convert into a third pair because EPDs moved up, that's a perfect price to have for a guy who you know can play minutes and is a leader in that room.
Could we have a line, a pairing?
No, I don't think so.
Are they both right or are they both left?
Let me look this up.
Because that would be fun if we could have the Pedersen line.
So Marcus shoots left,
EP
and then
or DPD. I think he shoots left as well.
let me take a look. That's the wrong link. That's the wrong player. Let's check that
There's
one.
too many Pedersens. This is what's going to happen.
That's the wrong Elias Pettersson.
We're good. It's Elias and not Elias.
This one, he
Or is
shoots
it Elias and then Elias?
There's an Elias and an Elias.
Hey, which one's which?
They both shoot. I don't know, but both defensive Petterssons, Marcus and EPD, shoot left.
Oh, so we can't have the EP Pedersen line.
Well, you could. You technically could. You don't need, just because they both shoot left doesn't mean there's not an option for them to play together.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, I guess you could, right?
100% you could.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's talk about the Friday that was, because we still got a lot to get into, and we don't have that much time to get into it. JT Miller was traded. Friday, when was that? That was right as I was getting off work, so it would have been 4:00 Pacific time.
Yes, because I was driving back from downtown Calgary,
and I called you called me out, and I was like, I had somewhere to be. I was trying to leave work. Was it Thursday or Friday? It was Friday.
Friday. It was the same day as the game. Yeah, Friday.
Yeah.
Because he was at the game and then he got dressed and left the building.
Yeah. And in return, the Canucks received Philip Hedl, Victor Mancini, and a first-round pick in the 2025 draft. JT Miller going to New York Rangers, a team that was heavily rumored and was always, I think, the number one destination for JT Miller and his no movement clause.
But we're missing something. There was more than just Miller that went to New York.
Yes.
It was a new couple.
It was Eric Branstrom and Jack Dorrington also went.
Right. Yes. So couple. I mean, Branstrom. Can you call him what do you call him? Do you call him a prospect?
I wouldn't call him a prospect. You could call him a prospect. He's young enough, but definitely has some. Definitely is older. Like, to me, he's a fringe NHLer.
Yes.
And then Jackson Dorrington is a raw prospect.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it. Sorry, I'm looking over at comments because we have a David Lee, and he's like, was this live a week ago? We're live every week, David. I don't know what you're talking about. Sorry.
Yes, we go live once a week, so we're talking about the news that happened on Friday. And then later in the evening on Friday, the pick that was the first round pick in the 2025 NHL draft. It was top 13 protected, meaning if New York finishes in the top 13, it is protected and stays with New York.
Right.
That pick was then immediately moved to Pittsburgh for Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor. Along with that draft pick, we sent Denton Heinen and Vincent Desharnais and Melvis Fernstrom, which then leads us to signing Marcus Pettersson today, mere hours ago.
Well, and I mean, Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor. I mean, Drew O'Connor was a force to be held yesterday.
Yeah. It was wild to me that I missed the first period of the game.
Yeah.
And to tune in and see...
Which is unacceptable, by the way.
To see Philip Hedl, Drew O'Connor, and Brock Besser on a line together really was confusing.
Yes.
Because I was like, what happened? Like, what's going on? But I honestly think those are the type of players that are going to give Brock the best chance to score.
Yes.
Because Hedl's driving the net, moving forward. O'Connor's just a guy who's chasing that puck and constantly pressing for it.
Yep.
It was a breath of fresh air to see movement and forechecking and energy, and I think it's been contagious throughout the entire lineup.
I
Like
agree.
like we talked about with EPD coming in and playing so well.
Yep.
It's nice to see energy and them standing up for each other.
That's what I liked. I like the energy. I like the the grittiness that was apparent all through that whole game.
Yeah.
What, and I pointed it out to you when Cheadle,
Heedle,
huh?
Heedle.
It's got a C in there.
I understand that that's how you'd pronounce it. It is a Russian name. It is Heedle. I believe it's Russian.
It's Cheadle.
Continue.
See, what I was looking at is I was posting on X. My apologies. She pays attention, that girl.
Sorry, he is Czech.
Okay, so Cheadle from Czech. It's not heck. It's Czech. So it's got to be Cheadle.
You know how how you spelled Czech? Czech.
But it's still C. Cheadle.
It's Heedle. Moving on.
So Cheadle, I pointed it out to you at the end of the game, the way he hugged
Demko after the
Demko
shutout
was just, it was like they were best friends from long ago. Now they might know each other. We don't know. But I was like, for a guy that just joined the team, wow.
Well, and again, talking about Marcus Pettersson, the fact that I can't remember who was talking about it today, but he was on the bench during that timeout when Colorado took their timeout with 6 attackers.
Yeah.
Marcus Pettersson was active in that conversation about what they need to do and everything, which is very rare for a new guy to come into a team and have that conversation and be comfortable enough. Sure, he's familiar with Tocchet from his time in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But for him to be able to come into that type of situation and just not take leadership, but have that initiative that, hey, there's clearly a hole left behind for Miller. Maybe I can fill that in.
Yeah.
And then also the goal that Heedle scored. First, just a fantastic goal, following the play, following up, something we haven't seen all year, rarely seen all year.
Yes.
And then his celebration was just that of contagious energy and optimism.
Yes. Let's just hope that come May, I can look back. I'll pull up the tweet that you put out. Let's tank.
Okay.
And let's hope we're still playing in May.
Hey, I was saying based off of our performance,
I was saying based off the analytical stats with the blah 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 and blah 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 blah.
Yes,
blah,
the way we were playing, and the team that was playing on the ice, there was no energy. There was a lack. Like literally, the change in difference in the last 6 games.
Oh, huge.
But again, I've talked about it, and I think I said it in that same tweet. We are a 5-game win streak away from a 5-game win streak of being in contention for a solid playoff position to be solidified in the playoffs.
Well, yeah, right. And I mean, when we go 4-1-1,
that's a good start.
I mean, that's 9 points out of a possible what is it, 10 12 points,
10. Yeah, we missed 3 points.
Yeah,
we missed 3 points there, and we got 9, so 12 points total.
Yeah, I mean, it's if we could do that every 6 games, come on.
Remember last year? That's how we were breaking down the beginning of the season. It's like, okay, if you win, was that last year? Or was that the Bruce Boudreau era?
No, that was last year when I was doing when you allowed me to do the old man predicts. But now you've canceled the most important part of the show. But that's okay. I'm over it.
Look, if the fans want it back, the fans will demand it. The only person I hear complaining about it is the old man, whose record I think at this point is like 4 wins, 950 losses.
But I mean, I was literally, if we played 3, I was constantly going 2-1, 2-1. right?
Like that's 600 hockey. That's above 600 hockey, and that's what you need to do at this point in the season where you're at. That's the type of things you need to move forward with.
But I honestly think we're going to go on a run here. Cruising into, and we're going to cruise into the playoffs as one of the hottest teams in the league. That's my prediction. That's the old man's prediction.
So thankfully to Puckpedia, because I don't know how to do this math and the cap situation and everything. But if we hold the amount of cap space that we have right now until the trade deadline, we can trade for someone worth $12 million without taking anyone out of our lineup. And again, there's thought that if the Canucks are doing what they can do, and they are the hottest team going into the trade deadline, or one of the hottest teams, that this management team is going to do that. They'll say, okay, let's go.
And we have the players to be able to move. We've got a Besser who we probably won't sign because he's asking for just that much too much.
And I don't think I sent you an article today from Canucks Army.
Yeah.
And it broke it down very well. I don't know if you had a chance to read it.
I glanced at it. I didn't really read it.
I would recommend everyone go take a look at it as to basically why we shouldn't keep Brock Besser. And that pains me to say, because I think Brock Besser is that piece that has just been that glue. He's been quiet. There's never been an issue. He's gone through ups and downs. And he's figured it out. He's on average a 30-point getter, 30-goal getter.
Yeah.
This year, even despite the down,
weird. I paused because that sounded really weird coming out of your mouth. It was like, why did that not sound right?
Because I said 30-point getter, 30 points per season.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Or 30-goal scorer. He's still on pace for that, despite the shitty season we've had so far. He's still on pace for that.
Yes.
If you're not going to sign him, if you think it's too much, then yeah, 100%. Like, Winnipeg's going to be looking for some pieces because they're making a push for it. But do you want to trade him?
I don't know if you'll get anything off of Winnipeg. Like, who are you going to get from Winnipeg that they're willing to give up?
You get assets.
Yeah, I don't know if you want assets.
Is Brock worth a first and a prospect? Then you flip that. We've seen it before. The trade for Marcus Pettersson is part of the JT Miller trade, but they're two separate trades.
Well, yeah.
You flip that. You flip
Pettersson,
that first round.
Who did we get for Pettersson? That's where we got Hiddle.
So for Miller, you mean?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Miller, we got Hedel, Victor Mancini, and that first round pick.
Right. And Mancini is playing in Abbotsford.
He has been up and down between both teams.
Yeah.
Right now he's on the roster, which is a great sign. Like, they're trying him out, seeing how he looks. I'd love to see him get in there. But we're now at that point where we have a logjam, and we're currently shopping Carson Soucy.
Well, I was just going to bring him up. We got Soucy that we can package with a Besser. What do we get for that?
Yeah, right.
Right.
There's lots of different pieces.
We're in a real good bargaining position now where we weren't. I don't think we were with Miller because every team knew we had to get rid of Miller.
Yeah.
Or Pettersson, one of the two.
Yeah.
I honestly, I can't wrap my head around the fact that we would trade EP40. It just,
I don't like it. I've been pounding it since the moment it's been come out that good management teams do not trade elite players. And no matter what you say, Elias Pettersson is an elite player based off of his stats. You good? You're a child? You good? You giant man, baby?
I'm a teenager. What can I say? Only a few people understand that, but carry on.
I lost my train of thought completely.
And folks, this is why you have to watch the show.
You're not. Great teams do not trade elite players.
No.
Elias Pettersson is that elite player.
I agree. I totally and 100% agree. I mean, what do you get for him? I mean, like
PD?
Yeah.
You're whatever you want.
Cousins plus.
Yeah, Cousins and Bowen Byram.
Right?
Like, I think Bowen Byram and Dylan Cousins and a second round pick for PD and Susie.
I don't think it's going to happen before the trade line.
No.
I can't see it, and I'd hate for it to happen before July.
If it does happen, that means we've gone on out of the remaining 8 games we have before the trade deadline, we've lost 7 of the last 8.
Is there only 8 games left? When is the trade deadline?
Trade deadline is March 7th, I believe. But you have 2 weeks in February where you don't have games because of the like next week. Next week we'll have to figure out what we're doing because there is a Team Canada game on during when we normally go live.
Ooh, we might have to go early.
We'd have to go pretty early. We'd have to go pretty early to make that happen.
Then we have to go late.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
We might be in the new studio.
We might be in the new studio, or you might be in the new studio?
We.
Okay. We'll figure it out.
I love when we have these conversations live on the air, and because this is how I could picture people listening or watching going, what the are they talking about? New studio? What? Stay tuned, folks.
Anything else you want to talk about with the Canucks? Yes, there is. There's one thing before we get into the CFL news. Quinn Hughes.
Yes.
Is set to miss 3rd game in a row, as it was announced today that he will not play against the San Jose Sharks. I think that's a very that's an indictment on the opponent more so than any indicative of an injury. But it does bring up the question, and it was said that it should be sorted out in the next 48 hours. Should Quinn Hughes play in the Four Nations Cup?
Well, see, I have 2 thoughts to this.
I'm listening.
If he was playing for Team Canada, I'd want him to play.
100%.
Because he's playing for the Yanks, sit your ass down and get healthy, buddy.
I can't. I would love for him to be healthy and take the 2 weeks off and get 100% healthy. We know he's playing through a hand injury that he has a brace on that looks so awkward to play in, but he's able to do it and not miss a step.
But this last injury, like, you didn't see it at the end of the game there.
Well, I've seen video of it.
It didn't look good.
So I was listening. I can't remember. I think it was Sekeres Price today, but it might have been Canucks Talk. I hate Wednesdays because I listen to everything and I'm not able to like parse it into my brain who said what.
Mm-hmm.
But they were saying that at practice the other day or today that he went for a skate, wasn't feeling it.
Yes.
Had a conversation with the medics and was pointing around to his midsection. So whether it's something in his like an abs situation or a rib bruise, it's definitely something that needs to be looked at and ensured that he's making the right decision for him professionally and not just personally, because being able to wear that sweater for your home nation, no matter which nation you're from, that's
you're going to try. Honor. You're going to try doing it no matter what.
Yeah.
But I hope if it's a serious enough injury that his peoples step in and sit him down. So he does have that 2 weeks to chill. And I mean, obviously these players are professionals. They're not just going to go and sit on the beach and drink beer like you and I would if we had 2 weeks off.
No.
They are going to be in the gym. They're still going to be skating. They're still going to be training.
Well, and out of that 2 weeks, I might take 3 or 4 days where they don't do any of that and they're relaxing and doing what we would do for 2 weeks. And
exactly.
But
exactly. Well, it'll be interesting to see.
Always with the Canucks, it feels like lots of moving pieces. Anything else on the Canucks front that we didn't get to?
Just win.
Just keep winning. That's all we ask.
Just win.
Win 2 out of every 3 and we'll be happy.
Yes.
Some CFL news. You have some CFL news.
Huge. I could go for an hour on the CFL news because I did my homework.
I was gonna say you are gonna need to carry this because as I told you, hockey is on. There's only one speed for my brain. You said I only have the bandwidth to follow the Canucks. I have the bandwidth to follow the NHL, and then after everything fizzles after that.
Well, huge news out of the CFLPA today announcing that the salary cap is going to raise, I think it was 9.7% from last year. It was supposed to raise, I think it was 6.7 or maybe it was 7.6. And because of the revenue the league created last year, and they worked out, CFLPA back in 22 worked out a really good, what's the word I'm looking for? Really good formula for the players that they could raise that cap. And because the league is thriving, listen to my words, people. The league is thriving. We've made more money last year than we ever have as a league as a whole. That is a good thing. So we have a 10% increase. Huge, huge, huge. All kinds of movements happening. Of course, trade deadline, free agency for the trade deadline. I'm stuck on
Stuck in hockey land.
Free agency is February 11th. Starts February 11th.
Great
but
day.
Right now we're in the negotiation window.
They just call it what it is, the tampering window.
Well, but they changed that rule, and you're allowed to you're allowed to negotiate. I'm chuckling because I'm hearing Rod Peterson's voice. Rod was explaining the tampering window or the negotiation window, and he's like, it's like you have your wife at home, but you go to the bar and you take offers, and then you go home to your wife and you say, I have these offers, would you like to match it? And if not,
it's ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous thing, like absolutely wild to me.
So huge movements about to happen. I saw a post just before we went live that VA has, because he's calling himself the recruiter out here in Calgary, and he's been posting some pretty eyebrow-raising tweets from "We want to win, let me win," or something along those lines. Translated is, you got to cough up some bucks. But like I say, I just saw a tweet from the Stampeders saying that the Rhymes and VA show is coming to the Stampeders.
I was just going to say that it was confirmed a couple days ago, or rumored a couple days ago, like confirmed by the insiders, Farhan and everyone, but officially announced that Rhymes will be playing for the Stampeders this year.
And with Winnipeg, just everybody abandoning the sinking ship, it's going to be interesting over the next 2 weeks, I'll say. I think it'll take 2 weeks to kind of sort everything out, because I think what's going to happen is some people are going to get signed, but then there's going to be trades involved. For the first time that I can remember, there might be actual real trades in the CFL, which would be huge. It never
But the
happened.
bigger question is, will it actually get covered?
We will.
We'll cover it, but I'm not talking the Rod Peterson show, because he'll cover it. I know that for a fact. But will TSN have a segment on SportsCenter?
I don't know. I'd love. I mean, I love TSN. I love what they have done for our league. I'm looking forward to the new deal coming up in 2026.
I think 2026.
I think they got one more year left in their deal.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they open it up and let others broadcast, meaning streaming, along with who knows, maybe you can put some games on Prime.
Look,
why not?
We rail against Sportsnet Plus, the Prime Monday Night Hockey presentation. I'm not a fan of the announcers.
No, me neither.
But that's because I love, and we've been so spoiled in Vancouver with, and we talked about it, I think that was in person a couple days ago.
Jim Robson,
Jim Hewson, now John Shorthouse, like guys who just, they sound like hockey when they call the game. To
exactly.
Me. But other than that, the presentation is better than what Sportsnet is doing.
The intermissions alone are just, I want to watch them.
but it's also because they only do one game a week. They have a week to prepare, right?
Yes.
Much like it feels like they took their Thursday night philosophy for Thursday night football and brought that to the NHL, which is a very nice, fresh touch.
Yes.
And I hope Amazon keeps that one, maybe 2 games max a week.
Yeah, that would be
for the
perfect.
for the next little bit.
Right. But so I had been promising, and I was going to wait till next week, but we have a few minutes. So I'm just going to touch on the BC Lions schedule. I'm not going to go over the whole, because obviously we concentrate on the BC Lions. I did it again. We concentrate on the BC Lions. We're huge CFL fans, but it's a focus on my Lions. They have a tough start to the season.
Now, is it actually tough, or is it tough based off of previous experience?
We could only go off previous years.
Well, yeah, but there's been you just talked about a diving to the lifeboats.
It is, because I mean, you look at it. We play the Elks first.
That won't be an easy game, I don't think.
That's not going to be an easy game. I don't think the Elks are going to be a walkover this year. And then we play the Bombers back to back. Then we play the Rough Riders, then Montreal, then back to Edmonton, Rough Riders, and then we get into a little bit easier. I mean, easier. We got the Ticats back to back, Alouettes, Argonauts. We don't play the Stampeders until mid-September.
That kind of sucks for us.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's here. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. Yeah, September 19th. It's in Calgary. But I'm liking what I'm seeing out of Vancouver. It was funny because they put out a tweet. We lost, what's his name? And then they put out another tweet saying that they signed him a couple days later.
Oh,
who am I talking about?
Keon Hatcher.
Yeah, Hatcher was gone. And then, we came to terms. Sorry. They're playing hardball, as they usually do, right? Which is, I think, great.
I think you also have to, because despite his restructured contract, and I don't know if we talked about that, but the Nathan Rourke's deal was restructured. He's still the highest paid player in the CFL.
Still making $600,000 plus.
Yeah,
I don't feel bad for him.
No,
at all. It's more so just the way they're paying it. I think they've restructured it with bonuses and incentives, etc., etc.
Yeah. So you have to play hardball in those types of situations, but it's also a huge signing reason for a Keon Hatcher. Yeah, you can go out and see what's out there, and they might pay you a couple $1,000s more. But are you playing with one of the best quarterbacks in the league?
Well, exactly.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
I am behind the scenes working on getting a top member of the BC Lions staff to come on the show before season, because I know once season starts, they're pretty busy. And Rod and I were talking about just the other day, where the CFL shoots themselves so often in the foot. Like, here we are banging our drum. We have close to 200 live viewers. We get thousands of views on our shorts. I'm not sure how many downloads of our podcast we get, but we're an up and coming podcast that wants to cover the entire CFL. Work with us, CFL. Give us some players in the off season. Let's talk about it. I'm going to reach out to the CFLPA and see if we can't do a weekly segment with them going into the season.
Yeah,
which would be kind of cool. Get a pick on the bye week players.
Yeah,
and see what we can do. We used to do that with the Rod Peterson show, so we'll see. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, again, we want the CFL to succeed. The reason we're critical of the league and the way things are covered is because we want the league to succeed. And clearly it is. Clearly the league is succeeding.
It's thriving.
It's thriving. The financial gain proves that. Yeah. And we've seen these deals that have been made for TV rights that are astronomically insane. Look at the Netflix deal for WWE.
Yes.
Look at the individual deals for Monday Night Football. Like the fact that Amazon Prime owns Thursday Night Football now, and I don't even want to know what those numbers are because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I could imagine. I couldn't even think of that high.
But sports is the only thing that costs these networks little to no money to produce.
Yes.
And in Canada, it's considered Canadian content.
And they need that.
And you need in Canada, if you're not aware, if you're down in the States, there we have a thing called the CRTC, the Canadian Radio Television Commission.
Yes.
And their job is to basically make sure that there is an equal representation of Canadian content on everything you see. They're actually in negotiations and talks with Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon Prime to ensure that still happens.
Yes.
That a certain percentage of their content is Canadian. So these rights should be highly valued.
Yes.
I don't want them to change their schedule. I want them to. I almost would prefer them to all go to one platform, whether it's TSN, Sportsnet, or Amazon.
Yeah. I agree.
Or a combination, Amazon and TSN.
Yeah.
Right? Amazon will carry one game a week. TSN carries the rest. Again, just like they're doing with hockey. Let them see if it's worth it for them. It costs them nothing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Anything else, old man, in the world of sports, entertainment?
I'm exhausted.
Entertainment? That's fair. That's fair.
Let's hope we have just as an exciting week. The Canucks put it together some wins.
We only have 2 games until the next show. 2.
Oh,
2.
We only have 2 games before the break?
Yep.
Oh.
We have San Jose and we have Toronto.
Can we go I can't say the word. No, shut up, Kevin.
Then there's the break for the Four Nations Cup.
Yes.
I don't want that much excitement during that Four Nations Cup break. I want things to just be hunky-dory. I don't want any big blockbuster trades. I want us to come on and probably have a shorter show than usual on next week. The week after that, we're going to be... Can we announce that guest? Is that officially confirmed?
Yes, that's official.
We are going to have Matt Sekeres' counterpart in 2 weeks' time. We're going to have Blake Price on the show for the first time to talk everything, including the BC Lions. I might even see if we can pepper in some conversation regarding the Vancouver Whitecaps.
Does he follow? Wasn't sure if he followed the BC Lions.
He's done sideline duty for years on TSN.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't know that.
Yep.
I did not know that.
Yep. So we can talk about that. I also want to see his opinion because we've talked about it, but the Vancouver Whitecaps are for sale. See if there's been any rumors or movement on that at all. So that's 2 weeks' time.
And I'm working on a guest for next week.
We're working on a guest for next week. No guarantees, nothing confirmed. That's why I wanted to double check that the guest in 2 weeks was confirmed. But hopefully next week, there's not going to be this much craziness and chaos. We can have a conversation, just talk about how good the team is and how Canada's kicking ass at the Four Nations.
Yes.
And until then, you beautiful people, have yourselves a wonderful week. You can follow us. The best way to support us is to follow us on social media at HSP_pod. Hit that like button. That's exactly what the old man's doing. That's a little thumbs up. Hit that button if you're on YouTube. Hit the subscribe bell. Make sure the little ding goes off so you get alerted every time we go live. Check us out. We might be in a new studio next week. Have yourselves a wonderful week.